coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Going to get some. Unbelievable. He stopped on the side of the road. We're coming from Washington State University. He's, 3/4 of the way across the country. Where are you going? We're going to get some Thai food. I mean, just look at his eyes. This is the accused Idaho killer. Accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students after being stopped by police in Indiana, driving cross country from Pullman, Washington to his home state of Pennsylvania, where he was arrested on December 30th. And now NewsNation's Chris Cuomo is reporting that law enforcement officials in Pennsylvania are investigating the accused Idaho killer in some other homicides.
But tonight, I can report to you exclusively that authorities in Pennsylvania, where he was arrested, are investigating potential involvement in other outstanding homicides.
All right, let me bring in my guest in Las Vegas, Nevada. Criminologist, professor, author, and serial killer expert Dr. Scott Bond is with us, who you can see live in his one-man show, The Psychology of Serial Killers, beginning in May. Also with us from Los Angeles, California, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Great to see you both. Dr. Bond, let me start with you. Does this guy strike you as a first-time killer, if in fact he's responsible for what happened? We're presuming that. He's presumed innocent. He's going to have a trial. I get it. But if he committed this quadruple murder, does it have the earmarks of a first-time killer?
Well, that is, of course, a great question, and I've been thinking about that for some time now. And as you said, right now he's an alleged mass murderer. However, the evolution, the progression over time of his history, and the fact that he has shown such disdain toward women and aggressive behavior, and his own troubled emotional problems, and dealing with drugs and his weight loss, and among other things, I believe that his progression is actually more similar to a serial killer than what we would typically find with a mass murderer. So would it shock me if we found out that he had killed before? No, it would not shock me. In fact, I thought that if this had been his first time and he is guilty of these crimes, I thought that it would be very likely that he would go on to kill again if he had not been apprehended. So no, I would not find it shocking.
Bobby Chacon, looking at some of the facts and circumstances surrounding all this, Chris Cuomo reporting that now in Pennsylvania, they're looking at some cases there as well. An obvious place to look, that's where he's from. What does your gut tell you about the circumstances of that scene and what happened in Idaho? Does it look like it's done by someone who's never done it before?
Vinny, that's really hard to say. I mean, my expertise lies in the investigation of the crime, and I'm certainly not a serial killer expert. But you do look at patterns. I'm sure it's very prudent of the people in Pennsylvania, law enforcement in Pennsylvania, to look at where he used to live and see if there are any types of crimes that kind of fit the type of crime he's accused of doing in Idaho. I think that's just prudent law enforcement. I think that when you have someone that's willing to engage in this kind of brutal activity, and you are in a jurisdiction where that person used to reside, I think it's prudent to look out. And then, of course, we have the NVAVC, the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime, the FBI's arm that's supposed to kind of coordinate this thing. And if it does have similar type of crimes happening across jurisdictions, it kind of supposed to kind of find those and bring those up and highlight them to those jurisdictions. But I think it's perfectly prudent. It's hard to say, there's nothing concrete. I'm certainly not privy to the investigations on either end. But certainly I think it's prudent for law enforcement to look into it, to see if there are similar crimes. It's really difficult to say whether he's ever done this before or not. The one serial killer I worked in the FBI got away with it for 14 years, and the only reason we caught him was the final kill that he did was so out of character from the ones he had done in the previous 13 years. That's how he got caught. He violated his own MO and his own ritual, and so he was caught. So it's really hard to say whether or not he's done this before. I mean, I see some, as an investigator, I see some glaring mistakes that he made in Idaho, which kind of led me to believe that, you know, maybe this was his first time. But the brutality of it and the calmness with which he carried it out also makes me lean the other way, that maybe he has done this before. So I really haven't come down one way or another on it. It's really too difficult for me to tell without knowing more information.
Dr. Bond, you know, the question everyone wants answered is always why. Does that question ever get answered when you're talking about someone who is a serial killer, someone who is out there killing again and again, sometimes strangers?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the million-dollar question when it comes to serial killers, and there is a misunderstanding generally among the public and among even some experts that they think one size fits all, that this motive is standard and it fits all serial killers, and it usually involves sex, some sort of a sexual motivation, and that's just not true. Serial killers are motivated by very different things. If in fact it turns out that that Kohberger is guilty, and let's say that, you know, whether he killed before or if he was simply a fledgling serial killer looking to do it again, what I see in this is some rage and power and control. So if he already had issues with women and was condescending and tried to control them, and he even apparently bragged about his sexual conquests and his ways with women, that strikes me as a guy who is probably lacking in self-esteem and his own confidence, but acts out on it and tries to make up for it through domination and control. And certainly, as Mr. Chacon said, the crime scene demonstrates definite brutality and cruelty, and that would be consistent with an individual who really had some resentment, anger, and perhaps just wanted to make women pay. And of course, the male student who was killed, I sadly, I think that was just collateral damage. He happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But to answer your question, Vinnie, this strikes me of anger, retribution, and a desire for power and control. And that is a particular type of serial killer. Ted Bundy was that kind of serial killer. Dennis Rader, BTK, was that kind of serial killer. And in fact, there's an interesting parallel between Bryan Kohberger and potentially Dennis Rader, BTK, because BTK also killed 4 people in his first in his first murders. So he, in fact, was a mass murderer before he became a serial killer.
Dr. Bond, we're going to have to continue this conversation on another night, and we will, because this is fascinating stuff.
Okay.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to plan an hour on this and talk about all these different cases, have you guys back. Bobby Chacon, Dr. Scott Bond, thanks so much.